Hello, back. Today I'm talking about my favourite Skyrim graphics mods of all time. Right now you're seeing what my actual Skyrim looks like, and I'm going to go through the mods that are most crucial to creating that experience for you so that you can recreate it and have your own crazy looking Skyrim. So the first mod is a very well known Skyrim HD 2K textures. Now this is going to replace a vast majority of the textures in the game that just look sucky, and sometimes you know you're looking at like the path on the ground and you think, well, that just doesn't look like a path. That looks like a mess. That looks like someone's painted a path on MS Paint. This replaces all of that, and just it's hard to pinpoint where it is, which is why I'm using the screenshots from the site. Because obviously it's hard to tell, wait, is this something they've replaced or was this always good? You know, like I've never looked at something after installing 2K textures and thought, wow, that looks great. It's just like it's not how it happens. It's a subtle betterer of everything, if you know what I mean. That was the worst sentence ever said by a human. No, it makes everything in the game slightly better, which has a massive, which the total effect is a massive improvement, but it is very subtle. So you can see the before and afters here. I've only got a couple. You can see it is much more defined and crisp where it does improve it. So yeah, that is 2K textures. Now, to go along with your 2K textures, you now have things that look really nice, but they don't look 3D. So what you need is static mesh improvement mod. Now this, if you imagine, you must have before, I mean, if you played enough Skyrim, you must have before looked at something and thought, that is supposed to be circular, and goddamn does it look like a hexagon. Like if you look at the wheels on a cart, sometimes you're thinking, right, how does this drive? Because it's so jagged, you know, it's not a curved wheel. It has like jagged sides to it that just looks ridiculous. You can see a couple of examples right now. And static mesh improvement goes through that. It cleans up, smooths everything out, makes everything that seem more 3D and jump out at you, because it is actually 3D. They replace some of the because sometimes in Skyrim things aren't actually 3D. They're just shaded 3D, if you know what I mean. Like the actual objects are 2D. And they've added like dark lines to make it look 3D. This replaces some of that and actually puts in 3D models, which is awesome, and it really helps it feel more realistic. And and it removes a lot of those moments where you just get thrown out of the game in the vanilla version, thinking, this is not right. And sure, you're not going to install it and think, holy crap! You're just gonna. That's the great thing about these first two mods, is the fact that you don't notice they're there is why they're so great. They're just subtle improvements that keep you happy. The next mods are the ones that you notice. Okay, so the next mod we're looking at is Realistic Lighting Overhaul, and this does what it says on the tin. It's going to overhaul your lighting in so many ways, from shadows to how ambient light works, and also you can actually configure how dark your nighttime is. And this is called Realistic Lighting Overhaul because it's not in your face. You know, it's not like earlier when I was talking about crazy, ridiculously saturated grass and freaking yellow suns making everything look like fire, and there's just, it's not like that. It's realistic and it's immersive, and I like that. You may not like that, in which case it's totally fine to use a different lighting overhaul mod. Some of this stuff is preference. Well, not the previous stuff. Basically, this mod is preference. So feel free to research. I personally like this mod because it goes really well with another mod we're talking about later. And yeah, it's really great. One of the things I do love about it is you can make your nighttime seriously dark. Like when it's nighttime in my Skyrim, you pretty much can't see anything more than 2 feet ahead of you, which is awesome because you're walking along with your torch and you hear a wolf and you're like, oh my god, get the hell out of here! And you're like running to the inn and you're trying to get there before you're like chased down by a pack of wolves. And I just find that really fun. So yeah, that is it. If you're looking for an unrealistic fancy lighting, then perhaps you should look for another mod. However, this one is just right for me, and I think it's subtle and yet it really does improve what's already there in Skyrim. And they do make the point on the mod page that it's not necessarily actually going to reduce your FPS, because it it doesn't necessarily add more lighting effects or take them away even. It's actually just going to change the ones that are already there, meaning that some people can actually get an FPS boost because it does remove bloom, which is there in the default Skyrim graphics settings. Okay, so the next mod is Skyrim Flora Overhaul, and this is a really cool mod because in the default game, or at least when I was playing on Xbox, one of the things I noticed, and there were only a few things I ever noticed about Skyrim that made me think, what are you doing? You know, like what this is not how it should be, was the trees. I would walk through a forest and only like the 4 trees near me would be detailed, and beyond that they were horrible. And you do get that sometimes on PC, even when you're close to the trees. They're just not very detailed. There's not much grass around, and what grass is there is all sort of the same. This mod overhauls to the max. This is going to make your Flora super crisp and HD, as well as improving how it looks from a distance, drastically improving how it looks up close. And yeah, it is really great. You can go for different versions. You can have a really summery vibe, or you can just go for the normal one, which is what I use, and it is great. I love it. It is one of the things that you notice because you're walking through and you're like, whoa, that bush looks so cool, man. It is. You can actually notice. It's really awesome. And yeah, I definitely recommend you check this out. It may mess up your FPS a little bit. I don't know. It's a lot of grass. And a lot of that grass is like doing waving effects, and it looks awesome. But again, yeah, it may reduce your FPS. Okay, so the next mod is the big one for me. This is the one, if you have the 4 previous mods, and then you look at my Skyrim, it won't look nearly as good. Because what most people will tell you is that what matters the most is the ENB. Okay, so an ENB is a preset that configures the whole shebang. Okay, it's the overlord. The other mods are its peasants. Okay, this decides how your Skyrim is going to look overall. Okay, now these are actually pretty hard to install. So for a while I didn't have them. I just had the previous 4 mods, thinking, okay, this is surely an ENB can't be that great. But then I followed a tutorial, which I will link in the description, that taught me how to install the RealVision ENB, and since I've been using it, holy crap, it looks so great. Like, it's hard to explain until you try it. You have to try it, and you will never be able to go back to not using it. So it's harder to install, but it is the only way. Or using a different ENB if you prefer another one. You can get ones that make Skyrim as a whole look darker and more creepy. You can get ones that make it look really vibrant and summery. You can make ones that make it a winter wonderland. You can make it look like a Fallout style, like apocalypse zone. Or you can make it look like mine. And to make it look like mine, you're going to want to use the RealVision ENB. It's a very popular one. I believe probably the most popular. It has a lot of downloads on the Nexus mod website. But yeah, it's quite tricky to install, or at least harder than your average mod. So link in the description to that tutorial. Props to him because it's a really great tutorial. And yeah, those are my 5 Skyrim mods. So if you're just getting into modding, it might be worth getting the first 4 and checking those out, seeing if that's enough for you. If you're a bit more experienced and you're ready to really get stuck into having issues, because I did have quite a few issues. It was like, oh, what? I've drag and dropped this in here, but it's still not working. It's like, okay, fine, I'll delete that folder and then paste it back in, and then, oh, I'm missing a DLL, and it's like, yeah. But once it worked, it was really great. So those are my 5 mods. Remembering that these may give you a performance drop, but I would say it's 99% of the time it's worth looking better. As long as you're staying above 35 FPS you're usually okay. My PC, I'll link it in the description, but I'm using an AMD quad-core at 3.8 GHz and a NVIDIA GTX 660. It's not the newest, flashiest kit on the market, but I still get a pretty solid FPS, and I rarely think, oh, what is happening? It feels like a slideshow! It's usually actually quite smooth. So yeah, thanks for watching. Feel free to leave a like, subscribe, look at the next episode of 3 Skyrim mods, link in the description.